New year, new body, new you, and Camille takes that to a whole new level. Head of the House of Ferros and augmented heavily with Hextech, Camille stands out as one of the most powerful women in Piltover. After solidifying her position leading Clan Ferros and maintaining their wealth through espionage and murder, her new body parts and political power make her a very dangerous woman to cross in the law. But how did she fare on the world stage? Today, we shine a competitive spotlight on Camille, the Steel Shadow.
Efficiency is paramount to success.
Debuting in Worlds 2017, Camille found a landscape not suited to her at all. Despite having a very successful season, overall with a presence over 50% during the year, nerf after nerf left her surprisingly weak for the Worlds patch. And for those who remember Season 7, you'll remember it was the year of the tanks. Lethality had come in, which effectively nerfed flat armor pen in the early game, and this meant if you were a fighter laning against a tank with another tank in the jungle, Ninja Tavis rendered you useless. Early lethality was only about 50% effective, and percentage penetration was pretty valueless early on too. Tanks loved Season 7 as champions like Cho'Gath, Sejuani and Shen rose to unstoppable power, with Galio dealing with those pesky mages when needed too. A common team in the 7th World Championship was a tank top, tank jungle and tanky Galio in the mid lane. And what dealt with tanks at all stages of the game? True damage, which of course Camille brought. But true damage wasn't enough to slow down the tank meta. Nerfs to Battle Trance and Warlords reduced sustained combat damage, and a nerf to Merciless also dealt less damage, making fighters less and less valuable during the season. On top of all this, Last Whisper, the consistent percentage penetration item, had its build path nerfed, and Lord Dominik's had its Giant Slayer passive nerfed too. Both later received percentage penetration nerfs, even Black Cleaver had its AD reduced. Tanks just kept growing stronger. Moreover, fighting top laners were pushed more and more away with tanky masteries getting buffed. Stoneborn gave more max health and healing when attacking crowd controlled targets, which a lot of tanks brought to the field. Like I said previously, Camille did bring true damage, and this was serving her well during the season. Being able to get an early lead against the tanks and running wild was a very powerful trait to be able to carry games against the often slower tanks. And as tanks slowly ramped up their armor, Camille would simply hookshot past them, practically ignoring all of the tank's armor and bulk and landing straight on the carry, and leaving her own team's tank busting carry to work front to back while she worked back to front. But Season 7 wasn't done ensuring tanks were in control of the rift. Nerfs to snowballing came in hard, reduced gold and experience from killing champions who were a lower level than you, the masteries that gave extra power for takedowns were nerfed, and the early game advantage Camille could get became less valuable. This is how strong tanks have become in 2017, and Camille, like so many others, just could not match up against them. With early game leads being less valuable, dueling items and masteries being nerfed, and Camille receiving her own nerfs during the season, she simply stood no chance in a meta where champions could not be damaged by her scissor kicks. By the time Worlds 2017 came round, if you weren't a tank or a late game tank buster, you weren't an asset to your team. But even if you did have the tools to deal with tanks, they were buffed so much that the Steel Shadow could just not stop them. Season 8 Worlds finally saw the tanks brought in line, with some tanks maybe reeled in a little bit too far. But Camille was no tank and finally thrived in the meta that let fighters fight. Irelia, Aatrox and Urgot lived for the top lane. Zinzal, Nocturne and Talia took control of the jungle. These were champions that Camille could easily combat, her true damage able to shred through armor if they chose to build it, whilst her mobility, sustain and passive shield made her an incredible top laner. But a new Camille role was defined. Using her hookshot and slows, Camille brought devastating ganks from the jungle. The auto-attack reset on her Q gave her an incredible clear speed as well. On top of that, the removal of runes gave every champion some slight stat changes, and Jungle Camille appreciated the increase in AD and armor to her base stats. Also, Hunter's Machete now gave attack speed to even better support her clear. Much like Elise, Camille had the hard CCs that could be delivered from range and could rapidly dominate 2v1 ganks in mid and top, especially once hitting 6, even when ganked, enemies just could not escape. Similarly to last season, Camille also had the power to ignore the front line and team fights, hookshotting into the back to remove a carry, so it wasn't just her dueling ability that brought value. The top lane meta had some good fighters and bruisers, and Aatrox was truly running rampant following his rework, but the true damage on Camille's second slash and the sustain from her tactical sweep meant that she was one of the few champions truly able to stand against them. Teams aiming to pick up tanky top laners or team fight bruisers such as Sion or Aatrox often banned Camille away to prevent her stopping their snowball. That said, one of the main reasons to ban Camille was much more simple. It was the players that picked her. 9 of Camille's bans were all against Invictus Gaming. Jungler Ning was devastating on the Steel Shadow, managing to get his hand on the Clan Ferros leader in a third of all games he played on IG's journey to becoming that year's world champions, only losing once whilst controlling Camille. Teams either picked up the knife knee, banned her away, or faced the real possibility of losing the game, something Fnatic just did not take seriously in the World Finals, with focused bans on the solo lanes, allowing Ning to dominate 2 games. The opening finals game had IG take Camille and Kaisar, making it really easy for the FNC backline to be accessed. An immobile Jhin was an easy target for Camille's hookshot, and Kaisar was easily able to follow up with her ultimate. Camille showed her prowess with a huge 6-0-8 that game. Fnatic appeared to learn that lesson and banned Camille before taking away some of the stronger solo lanes. However, IG still took the set. It was clear the morale of Fnatic had been severely damaged. Even though Jace was left open that game, IG did not pick him up, but Fnatic still made the decision to ban him again in Game 3. It seemed like an effective ban as both IG mid and top had success with Piltover's hammer, but they left Piltover's steel wide open. This time, with Galio in mid lane, Camille effectively jumped into the backline, the Hextech ultimatum guaranteeing the Galio knockup, giving Kaisar many opportunities to rapidly remove carries. Season 8 was huge for Camille, truly experiencing the benefit of being a flex pick, and a player who felt comfortable enough to pick her up whenever he got the opportunity, and her movement into the jungle really allowed her to lean into the early game rapid CC while scaling into the late game monster and making picks on out of position or squishy targets with incredible and artful mobility. In the pre-season for Season 9, Riot introduced turret plating. The effect was large, but champions like Camille, who excelled in the early game dueling, loved the change. Although nowadays we may have forgotten, the value of turrets changed significantly, going from 350 local gold to 1100 local gold. The total team swing was about the same, but for the laner that suddenly nearly had an extra pickaxe, the difference was huge. With this and a nerf to her early clears, jungle Camille was completely forgotten. There was a reduction in her base attack speed and hookshot no longer stunned jungle monsters, so she moved back into solo lanes and she dominated. Even once the attack speed nerf was reverted, the Steel Shadow had her position stabilised in lane. The stats from 2019 Worlds don't really reflect the picture either. Half of the games that Camille was picked in was during the play-in section of the tournament, which is where the 6 losses came from. However, when in the hands of the top 16 teams in the world, Camille didn't lose a single match, winning all 7 of the 7 she appeared in. Flexing between mid and top, she could bully her lanes with her Q, stay healthy with her W, and support or avoid ganks with her E. She was devastating in the early game, and even caught the attention of Faker, who used her to shut down Ryze. On top of that, she brought heavy wave clear through a typical build leading to Ravenous Hydra. Camille had it all, and a bug fix had further improved her damage input, making sure the Sheen stack in Trinity Force dealt true damage correctly. The king of top lane for Season 9 was Gangplank, and he was a top tier opponent against Camille. He was fantastic for area control, and the barrels made Camille feel trapped in her own ult, but her early game was unmatched and it allowed her to roll over Gangplank even when he did show up. Most other matchups for Camille were pretty simple. She ran in with her Q, her passive, and her W, and she decimated lane, gaining all of that local gold from the new turrets, while scaling into late game and able to shut down carries. All in all, Season 9 was quite a strong one for the Steel Shadow. Camille was the number 2 top laner for Worlds 2020, only beaten out by Ornn and the insane team support he brought as the Mountain's living forge. Camille actually received no buffs or nerfs during the whole of Season 10, but the changes around the meta and the nerfs to Aatrox brought Camille's strength into the spotlight. With top lane tanks finally being viable again, but not broken, Camille's true damage sliced through them, and the Steel Shadow's ability to duel any fighters that dared stand in her way was also notable. But it wasn't just top lane Camille was needed for. Her huge mobility and long range stun was incredibly effective against ADCs and bot, with the meta requiring them to either to possess the range to stay out of the fight or the mobility to dance around it. Hookshot would pin down the Jhin and the Lucian alike, with Hextech ultimatum making sure they can't escape this fight. Even Senna couldn't out-heal the sharp shins, and she was one of the biggest threats of the season to all champions. Camille was well suited for Season 10. G2 top laner Wonder really showed how effective the precision of a surgeon could be as he butchered his way to a KDA of 7.2 and 100% win rate across his games. Again, to clarify, Camille hadn't had any buffs over the season, she was just this powerful. However, one of the most valuable areas for Worlds 2020 was the ability to deal with Syndra. If Camille and Syndra somehow managed to both get through bans together, Camille could dive onto the Dark Sovereign, her passive absorbing the burst damage Syndra brought, and with the Orb Master unable to escape the ultimatum, Camille could cut her down. Even if the shield wasn't strong enough, Death's Dance helped deal with any burst. Back then it gave MR as well as armor, and Camille just loved the item, building it in almost every single game, on top of her usual builds of Trinity Force and Hydra. Season 10 was a season where Camille was an immense threat, both in her ability to carry games, but also her ability to deal with the meta so effectively. Season 11 finally saw Camille take some nerfs to keep her in line. With a reduction on attack speed following hookshot and increased cooldown on her W and passive, it made her lane presence slightly less dominant, but this did not stop her controlling the top lane. Camille continued to maintain decent pressure in Worlds 2021, but with Trinity becoming a mythic item, she was forced to decide between her old friend and a new toy, Divine Sundera. Sundera gave her everything she could possibly have wanted, and so was picked in all but one Camille game during Worlds. It gave health, AD, and the Sheen proc that she relied on so much. Camille would only look towards the Trinity in certain situations where the movement speed on auto attack was needed, but the divine healing could not be matched in most games, especially when combined with Grasp of the Undying, Titanic Hider and Sterix. Camille was almost unkillable. And as always, her huge mobility and CC made her a killer of carries. With Lucian and LeBlanc running riot across the season, they were unable to escape Camille's Hextech arena. This was essential against the ADCs building Gale Force 2. 2021 is also the year that saw Flash get dropped. With TP and Ignite, the early game dueling that Camille brought was even more terrifying. Able to take an early fight, win it with Ignite, and then maintain lane pressure with TP, or share her lead by TPing to another lane. This combination of summoner spells was truly oppressive. Sometimes even taking a bad trade, recalling, teleporting back to lane, Camille could still get first blood. Not taking Flash did remove some of your mobility, but Camille really took advantage of the extra combat stats she gained from teleport and Ignite. Speaking of Camille's mobility, it also helped her into range matchups, matching up effectively against the Jace who had returned once again. Occasionally, Camille would go back to taking Flash just to give her even more mobility, which helped her control her mobile carries like Ezreal and Lucian. And alongside all of these new items and mild changes, a new champion had joined the Rift, Gwen. Being able to drop Flash for Ignite, Camille loved this matchup, not giving up any global pressure by maintaining teleport, but being able to deal with and duel with the Gwen in direct combat thanks to Ignite. It was another season where Camille remained incredibly strong even though she took the nerfs leading up to Worlds. It's a real testament to the strength of her kit. So, when we look at Camille under a competitive spotlight, wow, Camille has been one of the most dominant champions in every single season except for her first. And this is to be expected. Camille is the 5th most present champion of all time, with an incredible base kit that allows for true skill expression. And pro players, they have the skill to express. Camille consistently brought great one-on-one dueling whilst being able to affect the map and lock down carries. So far, Season 12 continues to see a whole bunch of Camille in almost 50% of games, but she still hasn't returned to her jungle role on the professional scene. But what would you like to see changed in Camille? I'd like to see something that brings her back into the jungle, especially with challenging Smite working so well in her kit, but I want to hear what you guys think, and who do you think the competitive spotlight should shine on next? Let me know in the comments below. With all that said, I'll see you all next time.